let's talk about demand drivers. So a lot of our clients, our landlords, our developers are constantly wondering, who's in the market? Who's out there? Who's my tenant? Who's my buyer? So I'll go through some of the occupiers who are not only moving into Missoula, but nationwide absorbing, or I'm sorry, Bozeman, but nationwide moving in and absorbing most of the space. So number one has typically been retail wholesale. This is your Walmarts, your Targets, your Home Depots. They make up about 40% of demand across the country. Oftentimes when they move into Montana, it is either a tertiary model of what they have going in a larger market, or it's a subsidiary company underneath the parent company. Home Depot has several subsidiary companies for their appliances and different arms, and those are the ones that often move out into these last mile regions like ours. Ultimately, this is who your true tenant is. And actually globally, retail wholesale makes up about 72% of the GDP. I think they valued it recently at $73 billion. They're projecting 7% rent growth in the industry in general over the next 10 years. So we don't see any softening for requirements by these tenants. Number two, 3PL e-commerce. We've been talking about this for years. Everybody knows what e-commerce is. 3PL, third-party logistics. This is the Amazons, et cetera. The interesting thing that came out of this recently is that as millennials and Gen Z have moved kind of into the primary consumer sector, their transaction of purchase right now is e-commerce. 30% of purchases made through e-commerce result in returns. So where do those returns go? So the concept of reverse logistics has come forward after the big burst in e-commerce of who's gonna take the product back? The distributor doesn't have room. So now they're pushing on the end user, on the end retailer, well, I don't have room. And so we had all of this demand built up for additional warehouse space for returns, and it actually ended up spilling over into the self-storage space a little bit. Number three, and this is really interesting, is automotive. Automotive often was down at the bottom of the top 10 demand drivers, but now they're in the top 5. And this is honestly due to the growth, I think it's 156% growth in this sector of EV cars and battery manufacturing. So that's why you're seeing a lot more demand with automotive use, distribution. Those cars, those vehicles use the same parts as a lot of the gas fuel vehicles. So think tires, similar parts, and then things like brake pads. So you hope you got guys like this with cat leg speed and reflexes. Checking the specs. All right, so then number 4 will be the food and beverage sector. So this is your Coca-Colas, your PepsiCos, your Krogers, Montana Food Bank. They actually are a large absorber of distribution space in Montana. And what's interesting is Target is actually moving very quickly into this sector. So Target is becoming a big demand driver for cold storage as they enter into the grocery delivery world. And our last one to round 5 is the building material industry. So obviously in markets like Bozeman, when you see over 3,000 units potentially delivering in total, we have the same kind of thing going on in Missoula. So when these local jurisdictions kind of open the floodgates and allow more development for multifamily, single family workforce housing, that increases the need for materials, contractors, trades. All these guys need more space, need more yard. And so that rounded out the top 5 demand drivers.